Welcome to PAULSE, positive actions, uplifting lives, sparking excellence. This is more than a podcast. It's a movement, a space where purpose meets practice, where leadership meets life. Here, we believe in three things: listen, learn, lead. Because before you can lead anybody, you have to listen. Before you can change anything, you have to learn. And when you've done both, now you're ready to lead. I'm your host, Paul D. Taylor Sr. And here, we don't just talk about success, we talk about how to build it. We don't just highlight problems, we develop solutions. Every episode, we bring you voices that matter, stories that inspire, strategies that work, and principles that transform lives. Because at the end of the day, it's not about where you started, it's about how you move forward. So lean in, listen, learn, lead. Get ready to take your pulse. Let's grow. Welcome to PAULSE, positive actions, uplifting lives, and sparking excellence. Today we are honored to have our Superintendent of Schools, Miss Melissa Stilley. She's a leader shaping the direction of education across Tangipahoa Parish, a very large district of 30,000 students.
We fluctuate between 19 and 20,000.
19 and 20,000 students. Very large district.
It is a large, yes. Not the largest, but it is pretty good size.
And it spans from the north end to the south end about
45 miles.
45 miles.
Long and narrow, Tangipahoa Parish. It's a long district, but it's narrow. I think it's, 15 miles wide or something like that. But it's 45 miles long.
How many schools?
32 schools.
7 high schools?
7 high schools. We have a full virtual program for, families who choose total online, which since COVID, we have 340 families that are choosing full virtual for their students. And then we have a alternative site, which is a program. And then we have a college and career center.
Okay. So today we're going to talk vision, leadership, how strong systems support students, teachers, and families. So at off the bat, we're going to talk vision, leadership, and how strong systems support students, teachers, and families. So Superintendent Stilley, welcome to PAULSE. All right, so the first segment of our show is we like to take the pulse of our guests. So we ask 3 kind of warm-up questions, one on purpose, one on pressure, and one on impact. So for the purpose question, what motivates you to lead at this level every day?
So this is my 39th year, by the way, in education. And so I've been superintendent for 8 years. And, people ask me all the time, when are you going to retire? We don't know how you do this job, because it is a lot. But the purpose for me is, first of all, Tangipahoa Parish is a C district, and there's no reason why it cannot be an A district. And I think that one of my number one, goals has been to really focus on reading proficiency for kids, because I think when you get those levels up to students being proficient in reading, it impacts all other areas. And so we have a large portion of our kids that are not reading proficient. They're not on grade level, which impacts their lives in a very negative way, and causes all kinds of trickle effects. So that, number one, we put into place some really good things that are making a difference in that. The other thing is just, we've been in this long-standing desegregation case for 60 years. And I never could understand why the two parties, meaning the plaintiffs and the school system, couldn't come together and just, talk and figure out what is it that, that they think we need to do that we're not doing. All those questions, just ask them, what is it? how did this start? Because it was back in the 60s, you know. How did it start? What is it that is causing the Black community in particular pain about the school system and stuff? And so that has been a major priority for me, because the bottom line is we do spend a lot of money on attorney fees. And if you think about over the years, the 60 years, that we could take the money that we've spent on attorneys and spend it on teachers and classroom and buildings and things for kids, how much better our quality of education would be. So it's those things. We have one final factor, green factor, that we're working on. We have unitary status in all of the areas except for one, and that's facilities, and we filed our motion for that. So I feel like that I get up every day to do my part to bring that case to an end and do right by kids, like all kids. Make sure that they all have the best teachers and the best buildings and materials and all that kind of stuff. And then the reading part of that is proficiency. I just think that we have to solve the problem of making sure that every third grader by the end of third grade is reading on level and they're proficient, which means they're higher than on level. And you know, it's hard to walk away. I've never been one to walk away and leave something undone that I've started. And so I just feel like it has to be in a place that I feel like that the main priorities are finished and or at least almost complete before I would be willing to move on to the next thing. I don't think I'll ever just retire and be behind. I think God has something else. I'm just not sure what that is yet. He hadn't revealed it to me. But whatever it is, it'll be improving education. As you know, as we both know, it's education is how you break the cycle of poverty. There's no other way. I mean, you could win the lottery, but you have a greater chance of being struck by lightning, by the way. So we have to, and we in the public system, we educate the masses. So 20,000 students in Tangipahoa Parish. And not every family can afford to send their kids to private school, right? So it's our job to provide the very best education for our children so that they can live the American dream. They're prepared for either the workforce right out of high school or they're prepared for college, either route they choose. And so I don't feel like we're in a place where I can just walk away from that right now, even though I had the years in. I've done drop, I've undropped, all that kind of stuff. I'm not trying to reach a certain number of years, but I feel like the work isn't finished. And so that's why I get up every day and do this.
That sounds like purpose-driven.
Very purpose-driven, for sure. No question about that.
So, and listening at everything that you're saying, it sounds like when you said something that stood out, you said when I get up in the morning, but it sounds like everything that you're talking about is something that would keep the average person up at night.
Right. So most people think, I was talking to a group today and I said, what are the two things that you think keep me up at night? And one of them said social media. And I laughed out loud, literally, because I pay no attention to social media stuff. I think it represents a small portion of the people in our communities. And it's usually very negative. And so it can really drain a person if you focused on that all the time. But the two things that really keep me up, someone else said safety, school safety. Well, it's in my top three. It's number three. But I think our schools are very safe. And I know that doesn't actually keep me up at night, because I feel like that we have a lot of measures in place to keep our schools safe and to make sure that there's no one coming there we can keep people out. They're very secure. And then also we have precautions in place to keep kids from bringing weapons. So that is really not my top two. My top two, number one, is reading proficiency and just making sure kids can read either on level or higher, on grade level or higher, because it impacts everything. If you can't read, it impacts your math, it impacts social studies, it impacts everything. Kids become frustrated because they can't read the material. So then they start acting out.
Behavior problems.
Teachers are burnt out because they may have half their class that can't read on level. And so they're here trying to teach material that's, on level. And as they get up in higher grades, it compounds. It's like a snowball effect. So while the not reading on level in 3rd grade is a little bit of a problem, 4th grade, it's a little bit bigger problem. 5th grade, it's even a bigger snowball. And as they go on, it gets bigger and bigger. And we as a district sink millions and millions of dollars in trying to fix reading deficits as kids get older. And what I've learned over 39 years, and is that our strategy has to be early childhood. We have to do everything we can do before 3rd grade to get them on level by 3rd grade. Because this business of trying to get them on level in 4th and 5th and all that has shown in America it doesn't work. So early childhood is the way to go. That's the number one thing that keeps me up is the reading. The percent of our kids is a high number that are not reading proficiently by 3rd grade. And did you know that they plan on how big future jails need to be based on 3rd grade proficiency numbers?
Yeah. When I was doing I was running a program that was in tandem with the National Center for Fathering, and I came across that statistic. It actually was a study that came out of Arizona, and it was how they were developing the areas where they would build the jails, and it had to do with the areas of high crime. And when you overlap the maps of the areas of high crime, it was the areas of high illiteracy. Areas of high illiteracy, also high poverty. And so, yeah, literacy I think is key.
I think it's the most important thing we do.
Early childhood. I was interviewing State Representative Ken Brass, and he was talking about how the state is looking at doing that early childhood investment in early childhood, and starting at 6 months. So, I mean, we do have hope on the horizon that, our legislators are going to begin to, funnel some resources toward our students to give them the best head start. Because one of the when I was working at St. James Parish Department of Human Resources, we housed the Head Start program for our parish. And Ms. Genevieve Henderson, who was a principal, elementary principal for so many years at Roanville Elementary, she championed a program called Head Start Full Day, Full Year. And what it did was it brought those kids, my middle son, Joshua, was in that program. Joshua, we laughed today, because he was real quiet. As a kid, he didn't say a lot. He's really still a quiet man. And I thought something was wrong with him
because he really wouldn't talk.
But we put him in that Head Start program, full day, full year, and 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the evening. They even brought retired teachers in to help the kids with math and literacy. During the evening hours until the parents came to pick them up at 6 o'clock in the evening. So there was a showcase for the kids. Those kids, Head Start, were reading Fun with Dick and Jane. Those kids, Head Start, recited the preamble to the Constitution. And my son, he just
leaned his head back and was just reciting that preamble to the Constitution. And
you were like, who's this kid?
Who is this kid?
But it shows all of those children who were in that full day, full year program, if you track them, because they were all pretty much in the same class, same 2 classes, because they were some of the kids had to stay back a year because they didn't make that deadline, the dateline, October 15 or whatever, to get into school. And so, but all of those kids who were in that program, they were honor roll kids at least up until 6th grade. And those kids, if you track them, some of them made it into, a lot of them made it into cum laude
summa cum laude, magna cum laude. Like they were all like elite students because of the start that they got. And so I just wanted to kind of like tap you, because I know that you were talking about, you know, investment in early childhood for Tangipahoa Parish. There are some strategies that you're looking to invest in. Can you talk about that?
So, you know, one thing is that most people don't realize this, but MFP dollars that come from the state, it's minimum foundation dollars, it supports kindergarten through 12th grade. So anything that we do below kindergarten, like pre-K, is not funded through MFP dollars. So what that means is, it's like districts like us in Tangi, we write grants, we write for competitive grants to get funding so that we can provide pre-K for youngsters here in Tangipahoa Parish. And so that's why not every pre-K kid gets into a program, which is sad. That means they're at home with a grandparent or as daycare someplace, and that's learning. Yes. And then they start kindergarten. So our goal, we're at a pretty high percentage of our kids that do in Tangipahoa Parish that do attend one of our pre-K, but all of that money is secured through grants. We also have an early childhood network that we have about 32 child care centers in Tangipahoa Parish that fall under our Ready Start network. And our team works with those daycare owners and their employees on all the things that they can do in their daycare to build foundational skills, you know, with reading. Like there's simple things, starting with a baby, you know, holding them, talking to them, speaking to them, making sounds, like all those things. They go in the daycares and actually train the staff to how to do that, and depending on the age of the child. At this age, these things should be happening every day. When they get this age, these things should be happening with that child every day. And so and part of the thing that the daycares get in exchange is that they then get a rating from the network that says, okay, I'm a 5-star child care center. And, you know, of course, families look at that when they go to place their child in a daycare or child care. They're looking for the best, just like when we go on a vacation and we're going to stay in a hotel, we want a 4-star or 5-star, right? So same thing. But child care is very expensive. I mean, for some people, it's better just to stay home with your child, or especially if you have 2 that are in child care, than have a job. And so another thing that our network does to prepare them for kindergarten is we do fundraising in the community so that we can help mothers pay for seats for their child to be in a high quality child care center. And they have to either have a job and they have to work, or they have to be a full-time student. And we do fundraising to get money to sponsor their children to be in a high quality center that are doing all the right things to build literacy of those kids, so that when they start pre-K, they're ready. And then when they get to kindergarten, they're ready. So that's something that we're doing early. Another thing we do is, every time there's a baby born at North Oaks, we have those book bags of every mother. And it talks about our school system and introducing them to, it won't be long before you can blink your eyes. There we start in pre-K, what parents can do and all the resources and things. So we try to start at birth with really our families and connecting with them at the hospital to get them ready for that. In kindergarten, we started a new program this year called Once. And that may be what you're referring to. But the Once program, we're the only district in the state of Louisiana that's doing this program. It's done in some other states. The Once program, the reason they call it Once is because one time through the Once program, a child can read proficiently. We target kindergarten because we want to get ahead of the challenge and get them reading before they get to first grade. First grade is one of the harder age grades, I think, for elementary. So we do the Once program where we take paraprofessionals. In Tangipahoa Parish, we have about 360 paras. but we take paraprofessionals who work with kindergarten. So they're in the classroom with teachers. So you have a teacher in kindergarten and you have a para in every classroom. We have about 90 kindergarten classrooms here in Tangipahoa Parish. And those paras go through intense training through the ONCE program. And what they do is they provide 15 minutes of one-on-one reading, decoding instruction with every child every day. So every child every day in that class gets 15 minutes with what they call a ONCE instructor that's helping them with decoding words and reading sentences. And the results have been amazing. So we did a beginning of the year assessment on kindergarten this year, and we did a December, so just 3.5 months. Our kindergarten students, we had 27% more students that were proficient in reading than they were at the beginning of the year in August. So just in 3.5 months, we saw almost a 30% gain in the number of kids that were proficient in kindergarten. So now all of our principals are pumped up and excited about it. We see it's working. Kids are bringing home books in kindergarten and they're reading to their parents. So next year we're looking at expanding that into first grade, where we put a ONCE instructor with every teacher. So they of course have the teacher instruction, but for 15 minutes every day, every child gets additional interventions with reading in first grade. And we believe that that's going to be the answer to getting all of our 100% of our kids proficient by the end of third grade. And so then we'll be a whole different school district.
That is...
It's going to change this whole parish.
Sure.
It's going to impact poverty levels in this parish, which, by the way, right now, we're about 80% of our population in Tangipahoa Parish is considered economically disadvantaged. And that has happened over the years because for decades and decades and decades, right, we have had students that have failed to learn how to read proficiently, and we haven't been able to fix it. And what happened is they've grown up, they become adults, they have kids.
Perpetuating the cycle.
They can't secure good jobs, they don't have health care, they can't afford it, you know. All they can never buy a home, buy a piece of land. So it's created this cycle after cycle of poverty here in Tangipahoa Parish. And so the reading proficiency is the game changer. The doors will open for these students. It will change families when kids can read on level and proficiently. We've had examples of kids in high school that, for instance, they take these career workforce welding. Let's just take welding, and they know how to weld. Okay, they do the welding class and they can learn how to do it. But when it comes to that industry-based written test to be a Class A welder, they can't read it well enough to pass the test. So that limits their money making. So that's why it's so important. I mean, most of our kids can learn how to do the trade, electrical, right? We teach them how to do the electrical part because they're not reading. But when they go to take that industry-based certification test to be a certified electrician, which is money, mm-hmm. They can't pass the test because they can't read.
It kind of reminds me of the conversation we had prior to starting the podcast. We talked about playing music, whether you play by ear or you read. And it sounds like that we have a lot of people learning to weld by ear and not learning to read it.
Yeah. And
it's the easier thing to do. If you have that knack with your hands and working with your hands, but what gives you the advancement and breaks that glass ceiling for you and gets you that advancement is the literacy piece.
It's the national certification. If you have that piece of paper, you can go anywhere. You can stay right here at home and you can make good money, like 6 figures, mm-hmm. right here. If you don't have it, then you limit
what you can do.
And it's just it's amazing, and I don't understand why people haven't figured that out. We sit and talk, and we haven't even talked about crime.
Oh,
We just talk about poverty. But it also leads to sometimes crime. And, people are just trying to survive, right? They're trying to survive and support their family. So like I said, the literacy rates is really the number one thing that keeps me up at night. And we're making great progress, by the way. I mean, great progress. We, for the last 2 years, have been listed on the state superintendent's call after the accountability scores are released as the top 10 districts in the state of Louisiana with gains, growing kids in their proficiency. So we're very proud of that, and we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I just believe that we'll be an A district and very soon. We keep up that proficiency level and that expectation that all kids can learn how to read. It's a code. Sounding out words and syllables is a code. It's learning the code. And once you know the code, you can read anything.
Yeah. If
you don't know the code,
that is key.
Struggle.
That is the key. So let's shift the conversation a little bit because I know another big piece for you. Yeah. We know a lot keeps you up, but I know you have a passion, a fire in your belly to develop leaders. And so tell us about your leadership journey and why do you think it's so important to develop new leaders?
Well, I think it's important that, when we think about the school system, we have many teachers that are leaders out there. And you know who they are because they're the ones that step up and take on whatever needs to be done. They're problem solvers. People listen to them. They have influence with others. I think it's important we identify those teachers and we begin to encourage them to take the steps to get their masters and so forth to be leaders of the future. And I'm a prime example of that. When I was a teacher, I loved teaching. And I never wanted to even be a principal or anything. Like I was yes, I never had that as a goal to be an administrator. And I had several principals that, I worked for, and they would come to me and they would say, Melissa, have you ever thought about, getting your master's and, being, and I thought, a what? They said, well, we think you have it in you to be a good principal one day. And I was like, there's no way. I actually said that. There's no way I'm going to be a principal. I'm going to be an assistant. I don't want any of that. And then I reached this point in my career. I think I was teaching about 9 years. And I realized that we were in the district, we were getting some principals that, were kind of weak, And I thought, golly, I could do this. I could do as well as what they're doing, I know that's kind of a negative thing to think that, but I was thinking I could do that. I could do that and maybe do it better.
Sometimes the truth is negative.
And so that's when I started, working on my master's. But I never actually always had that goal to be an administrator. So from there, I was I was an assistant principal, a principal, and then just have kind of worked at different levels all the way up to where I am today. But it's been I believe that we have an obligation to develop the people around us and to invest in them, mentor them, encourage them, and because sometimes people don't realize they're a leader until you say it and you say, have you ever thought about it? You really have a lot of attributes to be good at this. And they they never saw it in themselves, And so I think it's our obligation to do that and encourage them and just be a mentor to them and build them up. And who will lead us in the future? I say this all the time. I don't think anybody, particularly wants to be in the military and go fight in potential wars or be called to go fight in a war. But it's a calling. They feel like it's an obligation that they should protect our country. It's not like, oh, pick me, I want to go to in a foreign country and, shoot people with guns. That's not what people want to do. But it is a calling to protect our rights as Americans. And so I think the same thing with educators. I think that, we're called to get good educators and leaders to step up and take those roles in the future. So it is very a big passion of mine to continually invest in people that are in education so that they're our next generation of leaders.
So what's one thing you wish people knew? Because as a leader, like people, they form their own opinions about, the armchair quarterbacks, right? They're second guessing. Yeah, they're second guessing every decision that one makes. What's one thing you wish that you could get across to people about what goes into making a decision? Because it's not like, it's the difference between driving a bicycle versus driving a car versus driving a truck versus driving a bus versus driving a plane. Like, you can't make a turn in a plane that you can in a car. So like, what's it like to drive your vehicle versus everybody else who's all their scope is I've been driving a car, and that's not how you drive the way she's driving. So what's one thing that you can say, I wish they knew this about, how I have to make decisions?
Yeah. Well, I think that making decisions are not as hard as, or I don't think they can be. They don't need to be hard or difficult. I think there's a couple rules of thumb that I follow when I make decisions. Number one, you try, and this is advice for anybody out there, you try to get as much information as you can about the situation. Hey, whether it's a weather event, whether it's something that's happened at the school, in the district, or the problem with literacy for reading. You try to gather as much information as you can. Once you have that, then you try to look at what are the potential solutions. Okay, so A is one solution, B would be another solution, C is another. So you kind of map out 3 or 4 potential solutions. Then I think the last and the final question I ask myself is, what is in the best interest of the students as a whole? If it's a situation about a school, and it's okay, what's the best for these students at this school as a whole, not one student or 2 or this group, but as a whole, what's best for the school, for the students at the school, or if it's for the district, you think about the whole district, not one part of the district, not, the north end or the south end or the central end. And those are really the 3 big things. I never get caught up and trying to think about who's going to like my decision and who's not going to like my decision. You know what I'm saying? Because usually it's the adults that have them in it, and every adult has a different perspective. And so when you're the leader, you have to know that everybody is not going to think that you made the right decision, right? You're going to have 50% of the people that think, oh my gosh, I can't believe she did this or he did this. And then the other half is like, oh thank God, I think this is the best solution, whatever. So no one 100% is going to think it was the best decision. So you got to know that going in. Like, you're not pleasing everyone. That's not happening. You're not even going to probably please 50 to 60% of the people, most likely. Right. But you have to go in with knowing all that you can learn about that situation, because you have to make an educated, informed decision about the facts that you have at that moment. You also have to consider the options. And then also, I think it's important to vet options with your team. So we have an executive team of my assistant superintendents, and we talk about the options. We say, okay, here's a potential option. This is, and we kind of agree that these are the 4 potential options or solutions to this issue that we're trying to solve. And then the last question is, what is best for the students as a whole? That has to be the last question. And so sometimes it's not what's best for the adults.
Right.
Right. It's not what the adults want to hear, but we're running a system here that's centered around students. And so we have to, and the ultimate goal that we have is that we graduate students in our system that are ready and equipped for life. to be successful, to whether they choose to go to college or they choose to go to the workforce. We want them to be successful. And so to me, decisions are not as hard, like you would imagine that the superintendent would be sitting there wringing their hands trying to think about what to do. But it's really those three basic things. And then I think it's important on the solution part is to bring in your team. And, like if I'm a principal of a school, I'm going to bring in my assistant principals and I'm going to say, okay, and maybe a couple of my leading teachers. And I'm going to say, hey, this is the problem we're trying to solve. Here's all the information we have about this. Here's what I think are some potential solutions. What y'all got? What you think? What, they might say, yeah, there's one more solution we didn't think about. It's this. And then after that, you think about what's best for kids. All the kids, most of the kids, the majority of the kids, you go with that. And so that's sort of my 1, 2, 3 of making decisions. And then knowing that there's going to be people out there that think you're crazy, or that it was horrible.
Yeah, despite whatever.
I say this, I don't hold that against them because they don't have all the information that I have. They have some information. So, there's a verse in the Bible that says, or maybe Jesus said this when they were crucifying him, like, forgive them, Lord, for they don't know what they do. Yeah. Right? Because they don't have all the information that I have. I have a lot of information that's confidential information that they wouldn't know, the public wouldn't know. And so, yeah, if I was making the decision based on what they know, their limited information about that situation, I probably would do something different too. But I know a little bit more because I'm privy to more information about that problem. So I don't have bad feelings for people if they hate me about a decision.
Right.
There's no grudges here.
But I think hearing that perspective from you, like knowing that you're not just shooting from the hip, I'm gonna call school on a gut feeling.
Did you know what? Weather is a prediction. Okay? So it's based off people's guess. Right?
I often say that the weather people, and I went to school with a very famous weather person from the area, but I'm hoping to get on my podcast, so I don't want to offend them too bad. But I say that's the only profession that you could be 60% wrong and still keep your job.
Yeah. The weather instruments are getting better in terms of their prediction.
And the equipment and everything. Yes.
Okay. So when I'm making a decision about the weather and like school closure and that kind of thing, I'm making it knowing that it's a prediction, which all of the other issues that I normally have to make decisions about, we have more concrete, accurate data. Like, it's stuff that you can, pipe on. Yes. But with weather, it's based on opinion and predictions. And there are always all these tracks that could be possible, and it's all based on timing. So it makes it, so with weather stuff, you're not winning anything. I mean, that's not happening.
A funny story about weather. I had a little league team that I started for my sons called Cypress Grove Bobcats. And one day I was the president and founder of the organization. And it was football season. So one day, it was raining. I made the decision in the rain that, to let parents know, hey, we're not going to have practice today. It is raining. And it was storming like it was. So I was making the decision in the rain. I'm sitting in my truck at the field. It's raining. Like it's just maybe 2 drops of rain from being a full on hurricane type storm. And as soon as I made the call, the kids don't show up to practice, and at practice time, the sun comes out. And so I was I can't believe he called practice.
You can't win with weather. Excuse me, weather calls at all. It's a challenge. But that's usually my 3 steps I follow.
So under our final segment, we're going to talk about innovation in the future. Some of the pros and cons of what you see coming down the pike with the advent of AI. How do you see AI possibly taking a more active role in teaching, because I know that's a concern for parents. I actually had an email from a teacher that was concerned about the program that we use for grading our English papers and stuff. So they want to, I don't want to mention their name on the podcast, but they were concerned about that. So can you talk to parents about that, how we're going to be using AI in the future, or what do you see as?
So AI is what I think is a double-edged sword in some ways. There's positives with it, of course, and then there could be negatives. And some have said that about technology in general years and years ago. But AI, we're actually use some AI interventions now. So we have interventions in place now that use AI technology, where they could take, they test the student, find out where they are in their reading. It's computerized, and they can provide interventions for that child. The child can read to them, that reads on the computer. The computer will go back. If they mispronounce a word, it'll say, let's look at that again. They'll automatically go back and teach that kid, do some direct instruction with the child to reteach how to sound that word and how those sounds work together. So we're using a little AI now with interventions. There's a high school. What is a high school intervention? Your high school, is it Step Up or Lexia's AI? It's like an AI intervention program. But there's one for high school. I can't recall the name of it right now, but it uses AI as well. So we're using it a little bit. It's kind of come out in education a little bit now with interventions. One of the things that, as I told you earlier, that keeps me up at night, the second thing is the lack of teachers. So, we're seeing more and more, there's just a huge shortage of teachers to teach our kids. And it's a great concern of mine. When I go to the recruitment fairs at the colleges to recruit teachers, there may be 10 people that are graduating in teacher ed, and there's districts all around us who are trying to hire them. Plus, at the last one, we even had Bay St. Louis over here trying to hire the little 10 people we had graduating in college from to be a teacher. So teaching is a shortage. We're doing a lot of things to try to, develop our own teachers. We have a program for paras to get them into Reach University, which is an online university. And they can get their teaching year degree for only $75 a month. So that's one thing we do to get more teachers. We've had about 25 of our paras finish their teaching degree on Reach University, and they're now teachers in the classroom. We also do a certification program for anybody that has a bachelor's degree in anything. They can actually go through our certification program and be certified in the state of Louisiana. So those are all things we're doing, but still, we're struggling with getting teachers to teach children. And so my fear is that the future could be that we have AI, teaching kids.
Filling that gap.
Right, filling the gap, right. And I don't know really what that's would exactly look like, but I think it's a potential solution in the future for some of these, especially specific content, you need a chemistry teacher, sometimes they're hard to find because they can go out into the industry and make a lot more money in that field than as a classroom teacher. So I think in the future, we're going to rely a little bit more on AI if we can't fill this void of teachers. And I think it's sad because I don't think anything can replace a human being.
Yeah. 98.6 degrees is what we all bring into the classroom.
I will never be convinced that a computer can take the place of a real person to teach a child, and that relationship, and that, the cues you pick up on the student when they're confused, when they're not getting it, when it clicks and they get it. But I do think that I feel like that, and I don't think it's that many years away, actually,
right.
That we'll be relying on AI teachers to teach some content for schools where we can't get teachers. And of course, you'll have to still have a human that's monitoring those students in that classroom. It could be a paraprofessional that's just in there with the kids to make sure they're behaving. But there's an actual computer teacher on the screen, on the smart board, teaching them. So I think that's one of the things we'll probably see in the future. And then when you think about student use of AI and just the use that, we had this happen to us the other day, last week at a school. We had a student that took 2 photos of 2 teachers, and they created this AI image of the 2 teachers kissing each other.
Wow.
Which didn't really happen, by the way.
Right.
But it looked like they were literally.
It was a deep fake. Yeah.
Wrong.
Wow.
So that's dangerous.
Yeah.
And kids don't realize that these kinds of things are illegal and could get them into some deep trouble, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the part of AI that kids are getting smart to, that they can, put a picture of someone in AI, create this distorted thing that they're doing that they're not really doing.
Too much power for a kid.
So that's scary. And I think parents need to be aware of that, and they need to talk to their children about it. Because even though, because the education system, it's like it's happening so fast. Of course, kids are always well ahead of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the adults. Yeah. So I just think it's happening so fast, but I think parents and all of us need to really talk to our kids and warn them about that, because, it could be, they think it's funny, but to the 2 teachers at that school, they don't think it's funny, right? Because they're married and have children with other people, right? So anyway, it could be a very dangerous thing. And so AI excites me, of all the
bells and whistles, the good things
good things we can do with it. But it also scares me, in that I think in the wrong hands and used in the wrong way, it can actually damage people. It can hurt them, innocent people,
right,
who, didn't ask for it, right? So I think we have to learn more about it, and we have to be really careful with it. And then on the education side as well, we have to be, the school system and school administrators and teachers have to be really careful about information we're putting into AI, that it's not student data or student information that's name specific. Like, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're needing to do a letter to a student's parent, and that student has a disability, and maybe there's some things in regards to IEP and very specific things that you would not want to put that information into AI and
right,
get them to produce the letter,
right?
Because then that student's information
mm-hmm.
is in this dark hole of AI.
Yeah.
And anyone out there could, you know what I'm saying? It's exposed. So that's the big thing that I think as administrators have to be sure we educate people on,
mm-hmm.
is that when you do something in using ChatGPT or what's that other one that's the Google, it's
Gemini.
Mm-hmm. You have to be careful that you're not putting information in there that's student specific information, student name, student date of birth, student diagnosis, discipline issues that are related to a specific student, because once it goes in there, that it's in that database of information.
Yeah.
In the, what I call the dark hole. And so anyway, I think that's the other thing that we've got to be careful of.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. And I don't think everybody really gets that.
No.
Yeah.
No, not yet. And with it being on the cutting edge of things, like a lot of policies haven't caught up to the technology yet. So yeah, it definitely is good to be careful about that. Now, I want to also just give you an opportunity to tell us about the Office of Innovation, a new office that you've created.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a new office that we created. And the reason we did it is it really focuses on families in our community, the families of our students, and meeting their needs. and which is how you build relationships. So if you want to know how do we build relationships with families so that they trust us, that we're in it for the right reasons to help their child, you have to work to meet their needs. Families have all kinds of different needs depending on the family. And so that department really focuses on that. And then also they work with the community, like really reaching out and engaging with the community. And a lot of that involves, they plan it and get it together, and a lot of that stuff I'm involved with them when we have those events. But it's really about the family and the community. And if you think about the big puzzle of education, preparing kids for life, you've got the academic part, right? That's your teaching, that's the curriculum, that's the interventions, that's getting them to read on level by third grade. The career pathways, where they choose a career they want to specialize in or go to college. And then you've got, you've got the culture piece and the all the support parts of the district that support that. But a big missing piece, I think, has been in our district is how we are working to really support and connect with our families. Because what we are finding is we have a lot of young mothers with children that maybe those mothers didn't have a great experience in school, and maybe they didn't read proficiently in high school, and maybe they're in this cycle of poverty, and maybe they're angry with us, right? How can we help them how can we fix that problem? We can't go back in time 20, 30, 40 years ago, fix it, but how do we make it right? And I think we make it right by getting it right with their kids, because that's one way. Because every parent wants a better education than what they had, right? We all want our kids to have better opportunities than we had. Yeah. And so I think that's one way that we help families. But we have this Office of Innovation leads up the Hope Closet, which we have one in every school. It's called Hope Closet, and we have a family designee in every school that the Office of Innovation works with. The Hope Closet is intended to provide necessary food items for kids who maybe have food insecurities at home. In other words, they don't have a lot of food in the house, and so we can very discreetly get them some food items to take in the evenings or on the weekends home, so that they're not going without food. They also have sanitary things in the pantry, the Hope Closet. So deodorant, female products that our female students may need. So things like that. And there's uniforms, jackets, coats that people donate. So that it's those things that sometimes a student may need that they don't want to just, and so the way that they can get, sometimes a teacher may notice that a kid, like we had some kids coming to school on those really cold days, didn't have coats. So they took them to the Hope Closet. They got what they needed, sent them back to class. Or we have churches that have adopted a Hope Closet. So like, let's say I'm a church, New Sharon, Husser, and we might pick LaRonja Elementary that we kind of help them with their Hope Closet. Mm-hmm. And we can send extra coats there from our congregation. We can also send some things like soap and things to put in there, help them stock their closet. So churches can actually partner with a school in their community to help keep those things. And then we make sure we get it to the kids that need it without making a big deal out of it and embarrassing the child. Because you want to do it in a way so that everybody maintains their dignity, but they get what they need. So that's just one example of what we're doing with families and kids in the innovation department. And then, of course, the other big thing is that we're doing is the pastor tour. So we've invited all the community pastors, which are the leaders in the community churches, to come on the bus with us, and we visit schools, and they get to see all the different opportunities for kids. So then the idea is that they'll go back into their communities and then share that, like make sure that people know about the College and Career Center. They know about that we pay in the summer for kids to go and get job certifications, so they can help us kind of get that word to the families in the community who might not know. So those are just a few examples of some things that we're doing through the Office of Innovation. And it is innovation. It is innovative. There's no other district in the state of Louisiana doing the work of the Office of Innovation with families. And it's the reason we call it the Office of Innovation, because people have asked me that. It's because we're thinking innovatively about how to embrace the community and how to work and engage with families in this work of preparing kids for life. Like, we can't do it alone. Right? We're not in the silo, we have to have the community, and we have to have the families on board with us with our vision of having kids prepared for life. And so that's the work they do. It's one of the things I'm most proud of from being superintendent, is that department and the work that they're doing. It's a real ministry. And I think it's going to help change our parish as well.
I think that it's going to definitely help to bring parents to the table. A lot of times people just feel like it's an us against them mentality, and education is a hard profession. That they're attacking teachers now that we're not professional and all of that stuff. But we know what the profession is. We know that it's not just a profession, it's also a calling. And so I think that the Office of Innovation is a breath of fresh air to know that we're a human too. We are a system, but we are also human, and we want to treat everyone as humanely as we can.
And the other big part that we want families to know is that if you went to school here in Tangipahoa Parish, the education that you got is not the same that we're doing for kids today. It's totally different. There's so many opportunities for kids today that are free. It doesn't cost the family anything. And so because we know that we're the change maker. We're the ones that we have to change the trajectory of where our parish is. And so don't assume that just because you had a bad experience in school and maybe you didn't get the best education that you needed to be successful, don't assume that that's going to happen to your child, because we're not going to let that happen.
Right. And final question that we ask every guest is a closing part of checking your pulse. What's one action that you would like to challenge our listening audience to do this week, to a positive action that will uplift their life and spark excellence?
So I would, I think this next week, or it's either this week or next week, is act of kindness. It's a time where we highlight acts of kindness. And I think that everybody listening to this, I think it's the month of February, but if we could just do one kind act for a family, for a child, for a community member, give them grace, right? Give them some grace and do an act of kindness. I think can go a long way in helping all of our community, and everybody here. So I would encourage and challenge, our theme this year is accept the challenge, but my challenge is to issue an act of kindness, to just intentionally think about, be almost like every day, like a act of kindness that you could do for a stranger, for someone maybe that you don't know very well, to help, because it can make a huge difference for the whole parish and everybody's quality of life here. If everyone could just think about, okay, what was my act of kindness today? And I think it'll go a long way collectively.
I think it'll go a long way as well. And I accept that challenge. And I promise that I'll do my act of kindness tomorrow. I would, maybe if before I get home, I'll do an act of kindness. But I thank you so much for joining us on the PAULSE Podcast. We are looking forward to all of the great things that's going to come out of the ONCE program, like literacy, what you're doing with the leaders in Tangi. I think is stellar work, because we didn't get to talk about it, but you do talk to the leaders. You do a leadership masterminds throughout the month. So I think that it's we're headed in the right direction, and the future is so bright. We gotta wear shades.
Yes, I'm excited about the future.
So thank you for joining us, Ms. Stilley.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. And thank you all for sharing with us on the PAULSE Podcast. And we hope to see you next time. Let somebody know that Miss Melissa Stilley says, do an act of kindness. That's your positive action to uplift the life and spark excellence. This is PAULSE.